There's something wrong with the ocean. I noticed it the first night we got here. I was standing out on the back deck of the beach house we rented, staring at the water, and it just didn't feel right. The waves weren't crashing like they usually do. They were slow, lazy almost, like the sea was half asleep or drunk. There was no rhythm to them, no energy, just these half-hearted rolls that barely touched the shore before melting back into themselves. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. It had been a long drive. I was tired. The whole point of this trip was to unplug, get away from the noise of the city, and take a damn breath for once. Corey and I had been snapping at each other for weeks. Work had been crushing me. Ava was coming off a tough school year. We needed this. The house we rented was tucked along a stretch of coastline with no other buildings in sight, miles from the nearest town, surrounded by nothing but sand, brush, and jagged rock, just us and the waves. I picked it because it looked quiet, secluded, safe. It was about an hour before sunset when I started feeling it, that weird, creeping tension. I stood barefoot on the deck, watching Ava poke around in the wet sand with her little orange pail, her sleeves rolled up and hair tied in a messy knot. She was trying to dig for clams or build something. I don't know. Corey was inside somewhere, probably trying to get the grill to work. I took a sip of warm white wine from a plastic cup and let the wind hit me in the face. It had that sharp ocean tang, but there was something else underneath it, like rust or iron. It stung my nose. Then Ava called out, "Mom, come look at this." Her voice echoed across the beach. I set my cup down and stepped off the deck, squinting as I walked toward her. She was crouched next to something half buried in the wet sand, right where the tide was starting to pull back. At first, I thought it was just driftwood, but as I got closer, I saw metal. It looked like some kind of old speaker or radio, but completely eaten up by salt and barnacles. It was heavy and dark, shaped almost like a floodlight, with thick wires hanging out the back like dead snakes. Ava had dug around it a little, exposing the rest of the body, which was partially lodged into the beach like it had been bolted there. "What is that?" I asked. "I don't know," Ava said. "It buzzed when I touched it." "Don't touch it again." I knelt down and brushed more sand off the surface, revealing a cracked mesh panel on the front. The metal was cold, way too cold for how warm the air was. Behind me, Corey shouted from the deck, "What did she find?" "Some kind of thing," I called back. As I leaned closer to the speaker, something clicked inside it. Not loud, just a little tick. Then, a second later, it spoke. A voice crackled from the front panel, distorted, garbled, wrong. "If you are hearing this, the seal has failed. Leave the shoreline. Do not approach the water." And then silence. I stared at it, my heart hammering in my ears. Ava moved behind me, grabbing my arm. "Mom, oh, what was that?" I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Corey came jogging over, out of breath and brushing his hands on his jeans. "What the hell was that? Did it just talk?" "Yeah," I said. "It said something about a seal failing. Told us to stay away from the water." He looked at it, then at me. "Maybe it's some old Coast Guard equipment? Like leftover from a test or something?" "It doesn't look new enough for that." He tilted his head. "Maybe it's just some prank. Someone buried it here to freak people out." "In the middle of nowhere?" "I don't know. I'm just trying to make sense of it." Ava stepped closer, still gripping my hand. "Can we go back to the house now?" I didn't need any more convincing. We walked back to the deck without saying much. I glanced over my shoulder at the ocean again. The tide was still going out, but it looked faster now, like the sea was sucking itself away from the land. 100 feet of beach that had been underwater an hour ago was now exposed, littered with seaweed and dark rocks that shimmered in the late sunlight. The horizon looked lower, like something had pulled it down. Back inside, I tried turning on the radio we'd brought with us. Nothing, just static. Then not even that. Just dead silence. Corey checked his phone. No signal, no surprise. We knew that coming out here. But then, right as he set his phone down, it lit up. All three of our phones did. Same time. No signal, no bars, but they all buzzed and lit up with the same red message and that horrible sound. Not the usual sharp emergency tone. This one was lower, a deep vibrating hum that made my jaw ache. Ava dropped hers. I picked up mine and read the alert out loud. Emergency. Alert. Oceanic rift detected. Evacuate from all beachfronts. Do not enter the water. Do not approach the receding tide. Do not respond to any voices calling from the sea. This is not a drill. I heard Corey curse under his breath. Ava started crying. What's an oceanic rift? She asked. I don't know, I said. I've never heard that term before. Outside there was a low rumble. Not thunder, not a plane. Something heavier, slower. The windows shuddered in their frames. I picked Ava up and backed away from the glass. Corey stood next to me, fists clenched at his sides. From our front windows, we could see the exposed seabed. The ocean had pulled back even farther now, hundreds of feet of glistening sand and tide pools stretching toward the horizon. And then we saw it. A figure, way out where the tide had been, standing perfectly still. It was too far to make out clearly, but something about it, it looked wrong. It was facing us. We could feel that somehow, its posture, the way it stood, like it had been waiting for someone. And then it called my name. Melanie. The voice didn't come from outside. It came from everywhere, like it was in the walls, in the water pipes, in the pressure of the air itself. Melanie. I stumbled back. Corey grabbed my arm. Ava buried her face in my shoulder. Then the floor shook, just slightly, a tremor, a warning. Out at sea, or where the sea should have been, the water started bubbling, boiling. The voice called again. Melanie! Melanie! The third time it said my name, I almost dropped Ava. The voice didn't echo. It didn't carry like normal sound. It just was, like it had been stitched into the space around us. No origin, no volume, just presence. Corey pulled the curtain shut. We're not going outside. No kidding, I muttered, holding Ava tighter. She was shaking now, and I was trying not to. I didn't want her to feel it. Should we try to leave? I asked, looking at Corey. Just get in the car and drive? He hesitated, then shook his head. We'd have to cross the beach to get to the car. We parked past the dune line, remember? It's practically on the sand. That warning said not to go near the water. We'd be running toward it. I hated that he was right. Another low rumble rolled under our feet. This one longer. It felt like a slow breath being exhaled by the earth itself. The floorboards groaned. Glassware clinked in the kitchen cabinets. The figure out on the exposed ocean floor hadn't moved. It just stood there, facing the house, waiting. It didn't need to get closer. That was the worst part. I don't think that's a person out there, I whispered. It feels wrong. Whatever this is, I don't think it's from here. We all jumped when the radio came back to life. A high-pitched whine shrieked out of it like feedback, followed by a burst of static that cut off just as fast. Then a voice, different than before, more urgent, more human, came through, warbling like it was being broadcast underwater. Do not engage. Do not respond. Shelter inland. You must not acknowledge the voice. It will not stop once it knows you. A pause. Repeat. If contact has been made, you must isolate. Do not approach the tide. It wants you to see it. Then the static returned, and the signal was gone. Corey moved over and yanked the plug from the wall. The silence that followed felt heavier than the message itself. Ava looked up at me. What do they mean? It wants you to see it. I kissed her forehead and lied. I don't know, baby. We spent the next 10 minutes checking windows and locking doors, even though it felt stupid, like a padlock was going to stop that thing. Still, it gave us something to do, something to focus on. The ocean had started churning again, not waves. Those were gone. This was different. A deep, bubbling froth had begun to form where the water used to be, like something underneath was waking up and shifting. The sand out there didn't look right anymore either. It had gone from wet and smooth to uneven, and breathing. I swear to God, it looked like it was breathing. Ava sat curled up in a blanket on the living room floor, her eyes locked to the window despite the curtain being half drawn. I didn't have the heart to pull her away from it. She wasn't crying anymore, just watching. Corey stood near the door, arms crossed. His foot tapped against the floor, fast and nervous. We hadn't heard the voice again, but I kept expecting it. Every creak in the house, every gust of wind against the siding made me flinch. And then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the front door. My heart nearly stopped. We froze. Even Ava, who had been half dozing, bolted upright. Nobody said anything. Then another knock. I turned to Corey. Don't open it. I wasn't going to, he said, but he sounded like he wasn't sure. We crept toward the door together. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Or maybe I just needed to see that it was still closed. The doorknob twitched, not turned, just twitched, like someone had brushed it with their fingertips. Then came the voice. Melanie, it's okay. You can open the door now. It wasn't the same voice from before. This one was different, softer, kinder. My sister's voice. But my sister died in a car accident 3 years ago. I backed away, breath caught in my throat. I shook my head, whispering no, no, no under my breath as Corey stared at me in confusion. What is it? He asked. I could barely speak. It's using her voice. It knows. We didn't go near the door again after that. We moved into the back of the house, into the bedroom, and shut the door behind us. I locked it, even though that felt meaningless now. We pulled the dresser in front of the window and tried to block the gaps with pillows and towels. Ava laid between us on the bed, still wrapped in the blanket, her face pale and blank. Corey kept the light off, sitting at the edge of the bed like a guard on duty. No one said anything for a while. That's when the pounding started. Not at the front door, under the house. Like something massive and heavy was crawling up through the sand, slamming against the house's foundation, trying to come through the floor. The walls shuddered. The closet door rattled. Then the floorboards near the dresser cracked, just a little. A short, sharp snap like something from beneath was testing the strength of the wood. Corey grabbed the lamp from the nightstand and held it like a weapon. Useless, I thought, but I didn't stop him. I pulled Ava tighter. Another pound, louder this time, closer. The floor beneath the rug near the window bulged upward for a split second, then settled. We didn't breathe. None of us did. And then, without warning, it stopped. Just silence. For a full minute, the only sound in the room was the wind outside, whistling through the warped wood panels. Corey didn't relax. He kept holding the lamp like it meant something. I sat up slowly. Something in me couldn't take the waiting anymore. I crept toward the window and moved one corner of the curtain back just a little. The beach was glowing. A red pulse, slow and rhythmic, was coming from beneath the waterline. It shimmered across the sand, lighting up the bones of the earth like veins. Like something deep, deep under the surface was alive and breathing. Then I saw him. There was a man standing just past the dune. Not the figure from earlier. This one was close. He was tall, broad-shouldered, soaking wet from head to toe. He wore a dark green coat, the kind you'd see on a fisherman. His eyes were locked on our window. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. And then he raised one hand and pointed at the house. At me. I let the curtain fall back into place and stumbled away from the window. "There's someone out there," I whispered. Corey looked at me, face pale. "Did you see his face?" I nodded slowly. He looked sad. Behind me, Ava asked, "Is he going to help us?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure. He didn't knock. The man just stood outside, drenched and silent, his soaked coat dripping onto the deck. For a long minute, we stared through the crack in the curtains, barely breathing. The way he looked at the house, at me, it wasn't threatening. Not exactly. It was more like regret. Like he knew something awful was about to happen and couldn't stop it. Corey whispered, "Do you think he's the one sending the messages?" I shook my head. "No, he's not broadcasting anything. He's just watching." "Then who the hell is he?" Before I could answer, he moved. Not toward the door. Not away. Just a few steps sideways, eyes still locked on the house. Then he sat down on the deck, cross-legged like a monk, right in front of the stairs, like he was waiting for something. Or guarding something. We backed away from the window. "What do we do?" I asked. "We stay inside. We wait this out," Corey said, voice flat. "Whatever this is, it can't last forever." I wanted to believe him, but deep down I knew he was wrong. The house had gone still again. No more banging, no more movement, just that low hum coming off the beach. It wasn't loud, not like a siren or anything. It was more like a vibration, a deep sound you didn't hear so much as feel in your teeth and bones. Like the earth was being tuned, like some ancient frequency was waking up and stretching for the first time in ages. Ava had curled into a ball on the bed, her eyes glazed. She hadn't spoken since asking if the man was going to help us. I checked her forehead. She felt clammy, but no fever. "She's in shock," I said quietly. "She's shutting down." Corey nodded. "I would too, if I could." I left the room and went to the hallway closet to find extra blankets. It was the kind of dumb, normal thing that made me feel slightly in control, like keeping her warm would somehow fix this. That's when the power went out. It didn't flicker. It cut. Everything stopped. The lights, the fridge, even the humming from the vents. Just gone. The house seemed to inhale when it happened, like the silence it left behind had weight to it. And then the emergency radio in the kitchen came back to life, even without power. It turned on with a soft click, the volume slowly rising on its own. A voice, warped by static and distance, filled the air. "If there is someone inside the house, please listen carefully. Do not leave. Do not engage the one who waits. He is not the danger. The sea has opened." A pause. "It is older than language. It does not want to be seen. And now you've seen it." Corey appeared in the doorway, pale and stiff. "They're talking about us." I nodded. I think we were never supposed to come here. We huddled in the hallway, just listening. "The breach has reached shoreline depth. Surface contact is imminent. If you are still hearing this broadcast, remain underground or away from all direct lines of sight. Avoid the windows. Avoid reflective surfaces. Avoid..." The voice cut out with a squeal of static. For a long second, we stood there in the dim light, not saying anything. Then Corey turned to me. "I think we need to go down to the basement." "The basement?" "Cement walls, no windows. It's the only room in this place that feels like it was built to keep something out." He was right. I remembered seeing it when we first arrived, just a storage space mostly, but the thick concrete felt like a bunker. At the time, I thought it was overkill. Now I was grateful. We grabbed Ava and carried her downstairs wrapped in blankets. She barely reacted as we descended the creaky wooden steps and closed the door behind us. The air down there was damp and cold. It smelled like mildew and rusted pipes, but at least it was solid. The small room had a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, powered by a backup battery we had in a supply kit. Corey clicked it on. The soft yellow glow painted long shadows on the walls. There were old shelves down there, stacked with paint cans and broken fishing gear. In the corner sat a folded beach chair and a bucket of rain-soaked firewood. We laid Ava on a dusty mattress propped against the wall and wrapped her in every dry blanket we had left. And then we waited. Upstairs, something began moving again. Heavy, measured. Each step creaked through the ceiling like a tree trunk hitting the floor. Not stomping, deliberate, searching. Then we heard a voice. Not the voice from before. Not the one that called my name. This one was deeper, wet, like it had never used a throat before, like it was trying out speech for the first time.
You are not welcome here.
The words were slow, strained, but clear.
You heard us.
Corey moved closer to Ava. I pressed my back against the cement wall.
You looked.
The footsteps moved to the top of the basement stairs. For a moment, all I could hear was the slow creak of the boards above. Then came the whisper, right through the door.
I can feel you.
Corey lunged for the doorknob and twisted the lock shut, not that it would help much. Then he backed away, breathing through his teeth. Ava stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. "He's here," she whispered. "The one in the water." Corey turned to her. "No, sweetie. We're safe down here, okay?" She shook her head slowly. "Not him. The other one. The one that watches from underneath." The light bulb overhead flickered. My skin went cold. Outside the basement, something scraped across the floor. A dragging sound, like wet rope being pulled through a storm drain. Then came another boom, louder this time. The walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ava started crying. I held her to my chest, whispering over and over, "It's okay. We're safe. We're safe. It's okay." But I didn't believe it. Then, quiet. The silence hit so suddenly it felt violent. Even Ava stopped sobbing mid-breath. The bulb buzzed quietly, casting a small yellow circle on the floor. And then, footsteps again, but not upstairs. Below us. Corey looked at the floor, then at me. "That's not possible. We're already underground." I didn't answer. The concrete beneath our feet groaned, a low sound like something pushing up through the earth. Ava whispered, "It's underneath." The moment she said it, the light bulb exploded. Glass showered the room. Ava screamed. We were plunged into blackness. Then something knocked. From below. 3 times. And from just inches beneath the floor, a voice rasped,
You are not supposed to be here.
We didn't speak for a long time. Not after that voice came through the floor. It wasn't just the sound of it, though that was awful enough. It was how close it was, like someone pressing their lips to the bottom of the concrete and whispering up into the room. It felt too real, too deliberate, and it used words like it almost knew how. Corey crouched in the dark, one arm protectively around Ava, who was curled tight in her blanket. I was kneeling near the far wall, trying to stop my hands from shaking. The bulb overhead had shattered, but the little battery-powered flashlight in my back pocket was still working. I clicked it on and placed it between us, casting a cone of weak light across the floor. It was barely enough to see each other. But it was something. Corey looked at me across the room. "We can't stay down here." "We don't have another choice," I whispered. "We don't know how deep it goes. Whatever's under us, it might be trying to break through." Ava stirred. "It's not breaking through," she said softly. Corey and I both turned to her. "What do you mean?" I asked. She didn't look at either of us. Her eyes were open but unfocused, like she was listening to something we couldn't hear. "It doesn't want to come in. It wants us to go out." I felt my stomach twist. Why would it want that? Ava's lips barely moved. "So we can see it." There was something about the way she said that, quiet, distant, like she wasn't fully herself, that made me shiver. I scooted closer to her, brushing the hair back from her face. "Hey, baby, stay with us, okay?" She blinked, slowly, like waking up. "I'm here," she said, "but it's trying to make me go." Corey stood. He looked toward the basement door like he might actually go upstairs. "Don't," I said quickly. "You heard what it said. It can feel us." "Then we're already screwed," he snapped, his voice tight. "We sit here and wait for it to come through the foundation, or we wait for it to crawl into Ava's head and drag her outside? We'll keep her safe." "With what?" he snapped, motioning around the room. "We've got a flashlight and a half-dead radio. You think that's going to stop whatever's whispering through concrete?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know what else to say. Suddenly the radio buzzed again, this time not a broadcast, just a high-pitched screech, like feedback from a microphone. Then, buried under the noise, a voice, barely audible. "He is outside. Do not look at his eyes." It repeated, "Do not look at his eyes." The flashlight flickered once, then a knock at the basement door, not pounding, just a gentle, patient knock. 3 slow taps. Ava flinched. Corey stared at the door like it might dissolve if he blinked. Then a man's voice. This one was different. Not the wet gargle from the floor, not the whisper that had called my name. This voice was clear, calm, human. "My name is Elias. I'm here to help you." We didn't respond. "You don't have long. It made landfall about 30 minutes ago. It's moving faster than expected." Corey stepped toward the door. "Who are you?" "A researcher, sort of. I've been following it since the breach formed. It's been surfacing along isolated coastlines, always briefly, always silent. But this time, something let it stay." "You're saying this has happened before?" I asked. "Yes, but not like this." The doorknob didn't move. He didn't try to come in. His voice stayed steady and firm, just on the other side of the door. "Listen, I'm going to open the door. I need you to stay calm, and do not look directly at me, no matter what you see." I started to protest, but Corey raised a hand. "We don't have another option." The doorknob turned slowly. Then the door opened with a soft click. A man stepped through. Tall, lean. His raincoat hung soaked and heavy on his frame. His boots dripped seawater across the cement, and he moved like someone trying very, very hard to seem normal. His head stayed down, hair slicked and dark, covering most of his face. He didn't look at us, and we didn't look at him. Ava whimpered, and Corey immediately knelt down beside her, shielding her view. "I'm not here to harm you," the man, Elias, said, "but you need to listen very carefully." "We're listening," I said, voice barely audible. He crouched slowly, keeping his face turned away. "The breach didn't open by accident. It was pulled open. Something on this side gave it room." "What does that mean?" Corey asked. Elias turned his head slightly toward the corner, speaking like he was addressing the wall. "It means something invited it. This place was built on old fault lines, forgotten ones. That device you found on the beach? It wasn't a warning. It was a trap. And now that you've heard it, seen what's behind the waterline, it knows you." I swallowed hard. "Why us? It doesn't care who. It just needs someone." He stood slowly and turned halfway toward me. I caught a glimpse of his eyes. Just a flash. But it was enough. I don't know what I saw, whether they were glowing or bleeding or simply wrong. But the moment I made eye contact, I felt it. like something had reached inside my chest and pressed its hand against my heart. Not squeezing, just holding it, letting me know it could. I jerked my head away, gasping. Elias didn't move. "Don't do that again," he said quietly. Ava sat up. "It's at the house." Elias nodded. "I know. I'm here to keep it from getting in." "How?" Corey asked. "What do we even do?" Elias pulled something from his coat pocket, a strange, angular device that looked like it was made from stone and copper. Runes were etched into the sides, pulsing faintly. "It's a ward," he said. "Temporary. I'll place it on the threshold. It'll hold for an hour, maybe less. Then what?" "Then I go out and stop it." Ava crawled toward him, her face pale. "You can't, it's too big." He looked at her, not at her eyes, but close enough. "I've done this before." I found my voice. "And did you live?" Elias didn't answer. He moved to the top of the stairs, placed the ward on the final step, and pressed his palm against it. A soft blue glow spread across the concrete. Then he turned to us one last time. "Stay here. If you hear my voice calling you to come outside, don't." And with that, he walked up the stairs, coat dripping, boots echoing. He closed the basement door behind him. We sat in silence, watching the blue light pulse on the step like a heartbeat. And then, the ground above us screamed. The sound above us didn't even resemble anything human. It was high and shrieking, but there was something broken about it, like the air itself was being pulled apart, layer by layer. The pitch was unstable, jumping from a sharp whistle to a deep mechanical grinding that made my teeth ache. Ava clamped her hands over her ears and buried her head under the blankets. Corey crouched beside her, squeezing his eyes shut like that would somehow drown it out. I stood frozen in the middle of the room, staring at the blue glow pulsing from the ward Elias had placed on the stair. It wasn't flickering. It was pulsating, matching the rhythm of the screaming, like it was reacting to the thing outside. No, it wasn't outside anymore. It was above us. Something enormous moved over the roof of the house, and the beams groaned as if they were being bent inward. I heard the windows shatter one by one, then a thud, so heavy and final it rattled dust down into our eyes. Corey looked up. "It's on the roof." I didn't say anything. I didn't know how to put into words what was pounding through my skull. My body felt like it had been submerged in cold water. Every breath felt stolen. A new sound crept in, a deep vibration different from the screaming, like a long breath being exhaled through the entire house, but in reverse, being inhaled. Ava's eyes shot open. She looked at me, terrified. "It's calling again." I realized with a sick, spiraling feeling in my gut that she wasn't talking about a sound. She was feeling it, like the voice wasn't something you could hear. It was inside you. "It wants us to come up," she whispered. Corey stood and started pacing, rubbing his hands through his hair. "If that ward fails, we're trapped. There's only one way out of this basement, and it's through the damn thing." "Elias said it would hold for a little while," I said, but my voice didn't sound convincing. And then the voice returned. Not a whisper, not a scream, but something in between.
"You saw too much."
It wasn't coming from outside or beneath us this time. It was coming from inside the walls.
"You heard the signal. You followed it."
The radio clicked on again, a hiss, like waves crashing on rocks. Then static broke into a rough broadcast. "Emergency override. This is a final transmission from Coastal Authority Station Delta 9. If you are still receiving, the breach has surpassed maximum threshold. Seafloor integrity has collapsed. Reality drift expanding. Evacuation impossible." There was a pause, a breath, and then, quieter. "It is aware. It has form. Do not follow the light. Do not look into the trench." Static swallowed the message whole. Corey and I exchanged a look. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Ava started humming quietly to herself. A broken, nervous tune. Something I used to sing to her when she was a baby. The floor shook again. Just once. But this time, something cracked. A sharp snap, like a branch breaking in the middle of a frozen lake. I turned toward the far corner of the basement. The concrete had split. A hairline fracture ran down from ceiling to floor, pulsing with dim, wet light. Not blue, not red. Something deeper. A kind of orange so dark it looked black. Ava sat up. That's where it is. Corey grabbed her shoulder gently but firmly. You stay right here, do you understand me? She nodded, but I could tell she was barely holding on. I moved toward the crack, drawn in despite everything. Something inside it moved, slowly, like smoke underwater. Then I heard Elias's voice, faint, ragged, like he was shouting from underwater. Don't let it in! You have to seal it! I'm holding it back, but not for long! I dropped to my knees. How? Elias, what do we do? Another voice answered. Not Elias, the thing in the crack.
You are a door.
That was all it said. Nothing more. I backed away, heart punching my ribs from the inside. Corey was at my side now, staring at the fracture. It's not breaking through. It's infecting the space. The ward at the stairs began to dim. No, fade. It wasn't being overpowered. It was being unwritten, like it was never placed there to begin with. We need to go, I whispered. Where? Corey asked. I turned to him. Back to the beach. That's the one place it came from. Exactly, I said. If Elias is fighting it out there, maybe there's still time to stop it. Or escape. Or something. We can't stay here. He looked down at Ava, then back to me. His jaw clenched. Okay. We grabbed Ava and the flashlight, wrapped her in the driest blanket left, and crept up the stairs. The basement door was still closed. When Corey touched the knob, it felt cold. Too cold. The second he opened it, the air hit us like a slap. Wet, rotten, heavy with salt and something else. Something metallic, like the inside of a deep wound. We moved through the ruined house. The walls had dark streaks across them, like salt water had burst in from every direction. The windows were shattered, and the living room was soaked. A low humming came from the ocean, a sound like a massive machine trying to start itself underwater. The front door was gone. Only sea mist hung where it used to be. We stepped outside. The man, Elias, was nowhere to be seen. But something else stood on the beach. Not the figure from before. This thing was taller, broader. Its limbs hung too long at its sides, and its surface shimmered like wet glass. Its body bent in slow, jagged movements, like it didn't fully understand how joints worked, and it was facing us. Ava buried her face in my shoulder. The creature raised its head. Its face was blank, smooth, like the suggestion of a face, not a real one. Then slowly, its surface began to ripple, and a face formed. Mine. The creature now wore my face, not in expression, not in movement, just the shape. It opened its mouth and my voice came out. You shouldn't have looked. Then it screamed. The sound hit us like a blast wave. I fell to my knees, Ava still clutched in my arms. Corey grabbed me, pulling us behind the dune as the thing's scream tore into the sand, splitting it in a deep, jagged line that led straight back to the house. From that rift in the beach, something began to crawl up. Dozens of smaller forms, like it was shedding itself, leaving parts behind. Then we heard Elias's voice again, real this time, coming from above. We turned. He was on the dune, coat torn, face bleeding, but standing. He held a long, curved object above his head, almost like a blade, but glowing with the same sick light that had pulsed from the crack in our basement. "Get back," he shouted. "Take your daughter and run inland." "But, run!" Then he leapt, straight into the horde. The moment he hit the sand, the earth exploded in red-orange light, and the screaming stopped. The blast knocked us flat. I landed hard on my side, arms wrapped tight around Ava, Corey somewhere behind me. There was no sound at first, just a white, static silence, like my ears had been scrubbed clean. Then came a deep, rushing pressure, like air being sucked back into the hole of an enormous lung. I lifted my head. Where the beach had been was now a crater, 20, maybe 30 feet across, still glowing with fading light. The sand around it had melted to glass. Steam hissed up from cracks in the earth. The ocean hadn't come back yet. The tide was still gone. The air stank of salt and copper and something even older, stone and ash and deep, hidden things. Of Elias, there was no sign. The creature was gone too. The long-limbed thing that wore my face and the smaller forms that had crawled from the rift were simply erased, as if the explosion had burned their footprints right off the planet. I sat there shaking, Ava crying quietly into my chest. Corey crawled over and pulled us both close. We didn't talk. There was nothing left to say. The sky was just beginning to turn gray, not the roiling orange storm that had boiled above us earlier. Just morning. Pale, cold morning. Eventually, we forced ourselves to stand. My muscles screamed in protest, but I knew we couldn't stay here. The danger was gone. I could feel it in the air in my body, but the weight of what had happened still pressed down like fog. The land didn't feel right. The world didn't feel right. Like the breach had twisted something deeper than just the ground beneath us. We stumbled back toward the house. It was barely standing. The front windows were shattered, the walls warped inward like they'd been sucked from the inside. Inside, the floor had cracked down the center, as if the house had tried to split in two to escape whatever had come crawling up from beneath. We found the basement door still hanging open. The blue glow from the ward Elias had placed was gone. Just gray concrete now, cold and silent. We packed what little we could. Dry clothes, Ava's blanket, a few bottles of water, and made our way around the collapsed boardwalk to the back of the property. The dune path to the car was half buried in twisted sand, but still passable. We walked in silence. No one looked back. When we reached the car, Corey opened the doors, started the engine, and stared straight ahead. "Where do we go?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. He nodded, like he expected that. We drove. The signal bars on our phones didn't come back until we were at least 10 miles out, near a fishing town called Graymarsh. The roads were clear. No signs of damage, no military presence, no sirens, like none of it had ever happened. We pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner and sat there, not speaking. Ava was asleep in the back seat, her arms wrapped tight around a towel like it was a stuffed animal. Her lips moved every so often, like she was still whispering something to herself. Corey looked at me. His eyes were red, but dry. "I think it's really over," he said. I nodded slowly. "I think so too." We didn't go inside. We didn't want to be around people yet. Instead, we watched the sun climb into the sky. A normal sun, blue sky, gulls, the scent of frying oil from the diner kitchen. Normal, but I knew better. We both did. We stayed in town for 3 days, long enough to calm Ava down, get a decent night's sleep, and make sure nothing followed us. We called my sister-in-law in Portland, told her we'd be coming to stay for a while. I didn't tell her why. What was I going to say? Hey, a hole opened in the ocean and something climbed out, wearing my face. A strange man saved us with a glowing artifact and maybe died in the process. Also, the sand is breathing now. Even if I could say it, I wasn't sure I should. Some things don't belong in the world of ordinary conversation. Some truths are too heavy to share. The only proof we had was Ava's behavior. She didn't speak for the first 2 days. Not in full sentences anyway. Just a few words at a time. Mostly to herself. I caught her looking out the window at night, whispering to something I couldn't hear. I sat beside her once, just listening. She was saying numbers. Not counting. Repeating coordinates. I didn't recognize the sequence, but the way she spoke them made my skin crawl, like she wasn't choosing the words, like she was remembering something. By the 4th day, it stopped. She blinked out of it like waking from a dream and asked if she could have pancakes. Just like that, she was back. We didn't push her on it. We haven't brought it up since. Weeks passed. News never mentioned a breach. No reports of strange weather. No missing persons. No Elias. It was like it had all been vacuumed out of reality. But sometimes, rarely, something leaks through. 2 months after we left the beach, I got an email. No sender, no subject line, just a message in plain text. If it ever returns, you will be the first to hear it. That's it. Nothing else. I didn't respond. I deleted it, then emptied my trash folder. But I remembered it, word for word. And every now and then, when I'm standing in the shower or driving with the windows down or lying awake at 2 a.m., I think I hear something. A low hum, like a signal, like a broadcast still waiting to be answered. People ask if we'll ever go back to the coast. We tell them no, not because of sharks or storms or rising tides, but because we saw what lives beneath the waves when the rules are broken, when something else decides to surface, because some places are never meant to be found, some voices are never meant to be heard, and some doors once opened never really close.